But it just brings me so much joy to see people find that breakthrough, and especially when they've never experienced anything like that, like you with chiropractic yesterday.
Unbelievable. I wouldn't have believed it. I would. Okay.
So first of all, you've never been adjusted before,
No,
ever.
no,
which
I was
is
scared
so
to death.
crazy for me to understand how
I
people
was scared.
would never
I was
get
scared of
adjusted.
it. I heard one story about somebody and somebody once tried to move my neck, and I'm like, don't do that. Don't do that. And so when you did what you did in a matter of minutes, I mean, like maybe under 10 minutes from my feet to my lower back and then maybe up here in the lower, whatever. I couldn't believe that I lived with this for 20 or 30 years. Every day, starting out with how I'm going to try and get all this stuff worked out of my lower back. And it was gone. And I'm speechless. I'm mystified. I'm upset with myself for not ever thinking that maybe this could help. But you just changed everything with such minor. I don't take away with the education and knowing what to do, but when you come right down to it,
hey, it's knowing where to push, right?
there were no papers to sign. Like, this is going to be under anesthesia, and this is going to risk evaluation. And like, no, I got up and I couldn't believe it. I could not. I still don't believe it. 10 times today, I'm like, are you kidding me?
And how about your feet, right?
Well, okay. So in fairness, my ugly feet, the right foot you said didn't have the arch, and it was like frozen. What happens to me, and maybe other people, and this has happened for maybe the last 5 or 10 years, my toes will all of a sudden cramp up and curl and be so, like I have to pry them open with my hand and stand up in the middle of the night and push all my weight against the floor to get them to open up. Then I have to walk and walk and walk. And then I have to psychologically be ready to get into bed so that I don't like have the, impulse to like they curl again. I have to fight against it. And so I assume that all this has to do with aging. Potassium, are you dehydrated? Everything in the world that I've heard. Yeah, so you're getting the real deal here. Yeah. And I had no idea that something like this was so articulated with certainty on the pressure and the point and the logic of the progression. Amazing, absolutely amazing.
Remember, it's just gravity and physics. To understand chiropractic, when you have poor posture and you've had injuries and your joints slightly misaligned and then guarded, they're just going to guard, and then that's going to be the point of all your problems. And so we put back on the center of gravity, we restore proper curves so the weight of your skeleton and your head and your body is on the bones where it's supposed to be.
Well, when you
don't always have nerves in the joints that are locked up that hurt, so you don't know, like your feet, like all those, the part of your foot that was all locked up, there's no nerve in there to let you know when you're walking, ow, that doesn't feel right. No, but the function of your gait was compromised. So it's a kinetic chain that goes all the way up to your neck. And so your knee rotated back a little bit, the hip has to rotate, the low back has to compensate, the opposite shoulder compensates, the neck on the opposite side. And so it's this foundational principle. And all I did was take an area that was locked up maybe for decades.
Decades, easily.
And immediately put life back into it by putting the two bones back in their proper place. So now that the foot functions while you walk, the heel, the arch, the ball, and the toe, all of them supposed to have a separate mechanism of function. So everything that we do to find that breakthrough and to truly restore your health, it's all about function. If you don't fix function first, it's never going to fix the problem. It makes me a little sad that other doctors, like a podiatrist, isn't trained in the scope of practice to do what I did on your foot. They're the foot specialist. That should be part of their scope of practice to restore the function of the foot, but they just get the cases typically that are either injured and damaged and they need to put the pins and reconstruct. Surgery, so we definitely need emergency medical care for the foot specialist. But I would think that they would have a scope of practice to realign the bones so things can actually function. But that's what our scope of practice is. So that's why we have a different scope for all different types of doctors to know when to go to which one for what. And of course, if we can avoid surgery, by all means, I think everybody innately kind of wants to avoid the surgery. I had some people say, surgery is easier because I don't have time to do all the rehab and all the work. I'm like, well, you have to do rehab on surgery too.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and then a lot of times people probably should have had surgery a long time ago and didn't, and then created so much more of a problem because they didn't. So
Right.
I'm not here to say when it's time and when it's not time, but I am here to say that there's options.